hazardous. She's only 17, made us curious. It was a carefree time. How about we jump back and rewind? We were living on Winger and a prayer, just garbage pail kids with mullets and big hair. Let's open up another pack. Gen X wants their future back. Break out the denim jackets with faded band patches. Share memories, Polaroid captured. It's the Gen X marks the spot podcast.
From the Wherever I May Roam studio, it is Gen X Marks the Spot podcast. I'm your host, Joe Augustine. Today, I got someone in the studio whose stories you are just not going to believe. He's laid down the groove for everyone from the Pointer Sisters to Hurricane. And he's even rubbed shoulders with icons from RATT, Quiet Riot, and Warrant. Today's guest is Mike Hansen from Hurricane. This is an interview that you're going to want to listen to and listen to again. Mike has become friends with boxing legend Ray Boom Boom Mancini, and he even squared off against Hector Macho Camacho in the ring. Now, if you think that's cool, this is even trippier. Mike, as a teenager, unbeknownst to him, was working for the mob. And just to show you how badass the Gen X Marks the Spot podcast is, unlike his old bosses, we are not getting rid of any evidence. Hell, we're streaming this conversation everywhere. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, YouTube, and TuneIn. Just a little programming note. Before I could even hit record, Mike and I hit it off so well that the conversation just started to flow. So we're going to pick the interview up about 10 minutes into the conversation. Here's my interview with Mike Hansen of Hurricane and the Davy Knowles Band.
I was friends with, some football players too that, like John Lynch, who was a close friend of mine, when John was playing for the Broncos, he was a safety for the Broncos. Yeah, and you guys a Hall of Famer. They inducted him to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
He got that. And then he was doing commentating. He was a commentator. And he's still at time to time, he's out there doing his commentator stuff. But I know his brother, really well. He was a construction builder. I supplemented my income by having another business in my life, which was a construction company. And I was a super high-end painting contractor. So I did all like hot rod finishes and like lacquers and stains, epoxy floors and Venetian plasters on walls and gold leaf and silver leafing and, high-end furniture finishing. And so I had a team of 15 guys for 25 years that I was doing all celebrity level homes. So that's what I did when I was off the road. The business still ran even when I was on the road because my wife helped run it with me. And so I would be on the tour bus with a laptop doing what I do, and talking to my clients, and all that kind of stuff and Zoom meetings. And I didn't tour as much as I do now. I tour more now actually because I don't have that business no more because I left there and I basically crushed it. But, it was good for me. And, I met a lot of very important people and I worked for the most wealthiest people in the whole world. I mean, seriously, the most wealthiest people in the whole world. I worked on their homes, not on their businesses, So I was real on a personal level with a lot of them. Some of the homes I was doing, were, $175 million homes,
That's awesome.
And I built that. It took me about 10 years to get the business to that level. And then, I had no ads, campaigns. I was all referral only. I was the guy the silent giant, that you had to know in order for me to come in and do some of these trick finishes. And, a lot of these builders and designers knew me and, a plethora of them. Not like I wasn't like known by everybody, but I had a good circle that I was around that kept me pretty busy. And, I did Oprah's house. I did, Vanna White was my client for 4 years. And, she rented to Prince and, I went to Prince's house and, her house. One time I went there because they were having an Oscars party. Prince wasn't. And she calls me. It's like, Mike, Vanna did. And says, look, can you bring the team over there? And, we got the Oscars coming up here in a week. And Prince decided he wants to have an afters party at the house, which she owned, which was 30,000 square feet house. I said, yeah, I'll bring the team over there. Just tell me when and I'll put it in the calendar and we'll get over there and knock it out. So, I bring my team over there. It took us about 5 days to clean up the house and, freshen up the walls, make everything look, like everybody really gives a fuck. You know what I mean? It's nighttime. They go in there and they're not going to see this shit, but that's just how rich people want things. They want everything right, so and they pay for it. So I go in there and I start working on the house and, knock on the door and, the Prince's assistant comes up and answers the door and, shakes my hand and said, "Yeah, Van, I said I was expecting you." And I said, "Yeah." So then Prince comes around the corner and says, "Hey, man." And he shook my hand. He said, "Nice to meet you," And he was real cordial. He wasn't trying to play rock star, don't talk to me, or I'm too good for you or anything like that. He was actually present. And so anyways, we come in, we start knocking it out. Day 3 comes and he's got the full PA system and the stage and the light rigs and everything set up in the living room, which the living room, mind you, is as big as one of your pole barns,
Oh, yeah.
And that's just the living room size. You know what I mean? That's just, and the ceiling is high as a pole barn. It's like that big. I mean, these were like, 20, 20, 20 feet high ceilings, at least 20 to 25 feet high ceilings, man, in this house. You got to think about the size of these homes. They're so big, right? So everything's like on Home Depot level. So yeah, so we go in there and they're setting everything up and he's got all the gears all set up. I seen the days that we're working there, all his techs were there and getting, fixing guitars. And it was like doing a regular show, like at a stadium. So then we're cleaning up. All of a sudden, I'm hearing, amps going on out there and, things getting hit, keyboards and stuff, a little bit like that. And his assistant comes up to me and I was downstairs in the lower half of the building of the house. And it was where the theater was. They have a theater. It was like a real theater, like an AMC theater in the house. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm down there. We're working on some of the wood and varnishing and cleaning things up. And, they got the popcorn maker full size. They've got the coming soon attraction picture frames down there. What's going to be showing in the movie theater. They got the concession stand, with the candy and all that shit. It's the real deal, dude. And yeah, this is a house, right?
Right.
So yeah, this is just one. That ain't nothing. I could tell you stories about crazier houses than this. But anyhow, so I'm down. He comes down to the assistant. He's like, "Hey, Mike." I go, "What?" And he goes, "I need your help." I go, "What's that?" And he goes, "Prince is frustrated right now. And, I told him that you played drums. And, he asked if you'd come up and hit the skins for him so that he can line check all this gear." And I said, "Yeah, I can come do that." And I'm thinking in my head, holy shit, I'm going to play with Prince? Are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
In his house, in a personal situation? It's way better than fucking being in the band.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, this is like a personal level. So I go, "Yeah." He goes, "I hope you're not upset that I told him." I go, "No, dude." I go, "It's cool." So I told the guys, "Am I coming?" I go, "Hey, I got to go upstairs for a minute and, and do some stuff. You guys continue." And so I go up there and Prince is like, "Hey, man." And he comes up, walks up to me. He's got his guitar on. And he goes, "Hey, you mind?" He goes, "I knew you played." He goes, "I could tell you're a musician." He goes, "But I just didn't know what you played, but you play drums, right?" And I go, "Yeah, that's what I do." And he goes, "No shit." He goes, "Hey, do you mind just beating on the skins for me?" He goes, "I really need to check all these instruments and I just need you to hold a groove so I can just kind of, check everything." I said, "Sure." So I go behind the kit and I go, "What do you want me to play?" And he goes, just groove for me, man." I said, "All right." So I start grooving and he turns around and he gets a smile on his face and he goes, "Wow, you can play, man." And I go, "Yeah." I said, I never, obviously I don't, you know, bring up what I do outside of when I work. I try to stay really professional. And I said, but I play nationally." He goes, "No shit." I go, "Yeah." I go, "This is what I do when, to supplement my income. I have this business too." He goes, "That's really cool, man." And so I told him this little stories about me. I said, I recorded at Paisley Park years ago. And he goes, "You did? You recorded at my studio?" I go, "Yeah." He goes, "With who?" I said, "With the Jets." I said, "I used to play drums in the Jets. You remember them?" He goes, "The Wolfgram family?" He goes, "Yeah, I remember them." And I go, "Yeah, I came down here and I did some tracks for Rudy while he was out with Paul Abdul. And I came down here and I played some stuff for the Jets for um, some renderings of some songs that they were putting together." And he goes, "Wow." He goes, "Yeah, man, that's really cool." He goes, "I've known them people for a long time. They're all, Minneapolis people, And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Yeah, we were on Don Powell management." And he goes, "Yeah, I know Don." He goes, "I remember that dude," and stuff like this. This is all, Minnesota people.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyways, yeah, he goes, "Well, go, keep playing." So I'm playing. And all of a sudden he goes, like, he plays his guitar and I'm like, holy shit, I'm playing with him with his guitar, man. How fucking cool is this? And then he goes to the bass. And then went on to play. Dr. John was showing up that night. He said, he goes, Dr. John's coming tonight. I go, no fucking way. He goes, yeah. Because I'm getting all the original Purple Rain cast tomorrow for the show tomorrow night. And I go, wow, that's going to be cool. So then I said, I know Terry Lewis, and I go, he goes, no shit. I go, yeah. I said, I work on Jimmy Jam's house and Terry Lewis's house. He goes, no way. You know those guys? I go, they'll be here tomorrow night. I said, well, cool. I said, because Jimmy knows me really well, and so does Terry. And he just really liked every bit of what was happening. So we ended up playing for a little bit, and then he played all the instruments, everything that was on the stage, even the saxophone he played, man.
Wow.
And I was just tripping out on everything. Yeah. So he did all that. And then at the end, he goes, I think I got everything, Mike. He goes, hey, would you like to come to the Oscars party tomorrow night? And I said, dude, I would love to come to the Oscars party. And I said, can I invite my wife? I mean, can she come? And he goes, of course she can come. So I get on I go, all right, cool. So I go back and, we shake hands and I move on. And his assistant comes up privately and goes, man, thanks a lot for doing that. He goes, you don't even know how big that is. He goes, Prince told me to put you +1, right, on the list. I go, yeah, I'm going to come to the party for sure tomorrow. He goes, all right, I'll have you +1 on the list. No worries. We got it. I go, what time should I be here? He goes, honestly, I wouldn't even show up till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. I'm like, whoa. I go, that's late. He goes, yeah, well, the Oscars go pretty late. And then there's, those parties. And then he's going to throw this party as a private after party. So I'm like, all right, cool. So then I call my wife and I tell her what went down. And I said, listen, I go, we're going to an Oscars party tomorrow night. She's, of course, the Pittsburgh Italian comes out and she's like, oh, what am I don't have anything to wear for something like that. La, 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 la. So I'm like, relax. I said, no reason to stress. I said, let me make a couple calls really quick. I might be able to get you into something. So I call one of my other clients and she picks up, the assistant, and I said, hey, I said, Demi, I said, we're invited to an Oscars party tomorrow night at Prince's house. I said, I need you to pull me a pro bono on this. I said, if you can help me, I would be fucking so gracious for this. I said, can you dress my wife into a nice outfit, a dress for tomorrow night? She goes, where are you going? I go, Prince is having an Oscars party. She goes, oh my God, we're going to that party.
No
I said,
way.
no shit. And I said, cool. So I said, all right. I said, well, she goes, hold on 1 minute. Let me talk to Betsy really quick. So she gets out, puts me on hold, comes back and says, Betsy picks up the phone. She goes, Mike, how are you? And I said, fine. I said, she goes, oh, you invited to go see Prince, huh? I'm going to be there too. I said, yeah. I said, is there any way that you can hook my wife up with something to wear? I told her a little bit of the story, what happened. And she goes, well, you're going to have to get her down here like right now, because this is a lot of work. And you know what? I'm willing to do it. I'll take care of you on this. No worries. You've always been great to me. Yada, yada. It's Betsy Johnson. Betsy Johnson. Yeah. I've told this story to people. Some people don't know who Betsy Johnson is. I said, Betsy Johnson is one of the biggest fashion designers in the world. And I said, she dresses everybody for the red carpets and fucking all the big shit. And so, yeah, I called my wife. I said, you need to go on Melrose right now, down to Melrose. And here's the address. And you're going to Betsy Johnson. And she loved Betsy Johnson clothes. So it was like, she goes, oh my God, you made that happen? I go, yeah, you're good. I go, but you got to get your ass down there. So she got all excited, went down there, and yeah, she put her in like a $10,000 dress. And we're hanging out for Prince didn't even go on till like 1 o'clock. And it was just hors d'oeuvre trays flying everywhere, drinks flying everywhere. And I am not shitting you not, but I talked for an hour and a half of that time when we got there. This is when this happened. I was talking to Sean Penn and Madonna at that time.
Oh, wow.
And that's when they were dating. And that's when I was there at that party with Prince. And then, yeah, so most of the night I talked to Sean Penn and Madonna. We're just hanging out, man. Yeah, Hurricane came a little bit after that. Not too much, though, because I was in Hurricane for 15 years. So, 15 years is how long I've been playing with them, actually. But I wasn't the original drummer. The original drummer was Jay Shellen, who is now with the band Yes. But,
no way.
Yeah, he did all the early tracks, all the early songs, all the stuff like that. And I know Kelly Hansen always asks me, people always ask me about Kelly Hansen, and I always make the joke that he's my fifth cousin, but we're not related at all.
I did know
people
that.
ask
Yeah.
that all the time. Yeah, well, that's always a question that comes up in interviews with me. Are you related to Kelly Hansen? All the time. And I always make a joke. I said, yeah, he's my fifth cousin. And sometimes they don't know how to take it. And they just laugh with me, and they don't ask any more questions about it. So it's kind of funny. But it's like I just make a joke out of it. But no, the funny thing is that me and Kelly did used to play with each other. But, it just then he went on to moving on to Foreigner for 20 years, But yeah, so I came into the band when the band kind of had some shift changes in it, and that's kind of where it put me with that band. So the only record that I'm actually on is the newest record, which is the Reconnected album, which is the newest one. Yeah, and that's the album that I'm on. But the other album, I've been playing the catalog in that band for 15 years, and now we've got Carlos Cavazo playing guitar, and Robert's not in the band anymore. So we got Carlos from Quiet Riot, which is Tony Cavazo's brother, who's the original bass player of Hurricane. So really, honestly, Tony is only the last original member left in Hurricane.
Now that Kelly's not in Foreigner, any chance him coming back to Hurricane?
No, I don't think that's ever going to happen. It's just there was too much. I know that Tony is okay with Kelly, but I think the whole story behind that band was kind of a bit of a mess, and I just think there was just too much bad blood that went on for many years in that band, and a lot of really bad things that happened internally in that band that the media doesn't know, and the public doesn't really know. They know the departure of Robert the last time, when Doug Ulrich came in and played the guitar, and he did Slave the Thrill record, and nobody even knows the reason why that happened. Well, it's the same damn reason why it happened this time. And some people just don't learn. And at 70 years old, you would think that somebody would learn and not be so desperate to make careless moves like that and basically jeopardize their friendship and relationships with their band members. And this last one was a really bad one. So, he just went his way and we went our way. And then Tony's like, well, fuck, man, we just finished this album. What are we going to do now? I said, what we're going to do is this. I said, you're going to call your brother Carlos and you're going to ask him to play guitar to help support the touring for this album, to tour support. And I said, and that's going to be the only way it's the only way this is going to fucking work, man. I said, to make it like, like people are going to buy us out for the right price, not lowball us because now we don't have all the original members in the band. But bringing Carlos is actually much bigger than having Robert in the band because he comes from Quiet Riot, man.
Yeah.
And he's also your fucking brother, which is a great story.
Absolutely.
So I told him, and I told him that, and I said, dude, I go, you gotta call him. I said, but this is what I think you should say to him. I think you need to make it personal. I said, don't make this one a business one. This has to be a personal one. Look, you're what, 70 years old? Your brother's 68. Carlos is younger than Tony by a couple of years.
Okay.
And I said, yeah, he's the younger brother of the two, believe it or not.
Wow.
And I said, and then with Robert Sarzo and Tony and Robert Sarzo and Rudy Sarzo, Rudy's older than Robert. So it's just the reverse with those two brothers. And they're within a couple of years apart as well.
I always thought that was a crazy connection with the Sarzos and the Cavazos.
Yeah, and it's interesting how that happened. So when Quiet Riot was developed, and I know all these stories pretty accurately because obviously I've been around all of them, and I've heard each guy talk about, all these, we all got stories. So then, so the one story that's been around a long time is so when Carlos became, after Randy Rhoads had left Quiet Riot, Randy Rhoads is the one that recommended Carlos Cavazo to take his place in Quiet Riot. And at that time, Carlos was probably the best rock guitar player in Los Angeles, at that time, besides Randy Rhoads. But Randy wasn't as big yet as Carlos was. Carlos actually was well more known in the town than Randy was at the time. And then what broke Randy was, obviously when he joined up with Ozzy. That's what broke him, But, the time that Randy helped develop with Kevin DeBro, Quiet Riot, they struggled for some years. They played, the Hollywood circuit and just were always just kind of playing the circuit, you know, and their music was just not, it wasn't registering to people, you know, well yet. You know, people weren't getting it because they started a whole movement, you know, Quiet Riot did. And people weren't ready for that movement yet. You know, I mean, it just wasn't, the timing was not right yet, I guess, for some reason. So then when, you know, so then all of a sudden, you know, Randy Rhoads gets offered, you know, Ozzy picks him up. And so Randy made the move and called Carlos and said, well, this is the best guitar player in fucking town. You guys should use this guy. Recommended him, got him into the gig. But Carlos is a good songwriter. So until Carlos had joined Quiet Riot, him and Kevin DuBrow started writing. And that's when Quiet Riot started doing much better, because Carlos was actually a strong songwriter. Randy Rhoads wasn't really a strong songwriter. So,
wow.
Yeah, so him and Kevin started writing, and then there was a song. I can't remember the name of the dang thing now, the real name of it. It was called, I think. Anyhow, that was a song that was written by Tony Cavazo and Carlos Cavazo in the band that they were in before Carlos was offered the Quiet Riot gig, and that band was called Snow. And they used to play the Whiskey, man, and sell 2 shows out a night, man, sold out at the Whiskey. People around the corner, all the way up the street waiting to get in, man. Dude, those days are gone. You don't see people doing that anymore. It's crazy. So so there was a song called Booze and Something. I can't remember, man. It's something and something. And anyhow, so Kevin DuBrow heard that song and said, you know what? He goes, we should do this song in Quiet Riot. He goes, but we should change the name, and, you know, I'll move around some lyrics to make it ours, and let's do it, you know. But the melody was all written by Carlos and Tony. Well, that song became one of the biggest hits of Quiet Riot, which was Mental Health, Bang Your Head.
Nice. Oh, wow.
And that's where it came from. That it came from the other band. It came from Snow. And then, you know, and Kevin just kind of, you know, bang, he changed some of the words to make it do that. And then, you know, and then all of a sudden, boom, that song became like one of the biggest songs ever, right? So that came from another band, that song. And then they just kind of reworked it into that song to make it Mental Health. Then all of a sudden, you know, the the US Festival happened, and then there was a band, I don't remember which band it was, but they backed out or something happened. And then they ended up calling Quiet Riot to come in to fill the spot. And the US Festival is what broke them. And people were like, when they got on that stage, people, you know, in front of 80,000 people are like going, who the hell is this band? I mean, who ever heard this before, this kind of music? And that's when that style of rock came out, was because Quiet Riot brought that hard rock style out. That was their version. And they started that whole, there wouldn't be your Rats today. You know, there wouldn't be those kind of bands, Skid Rows and all these kind of bands would not be around if it wasn't for Quiet Riot.
Yeah, I mean, they
You
had
know?
they were the first metal hard rock band to have a #1 album.
#1 album, but also a #1 hit on the Billboard charts ever. They also bounced Michael Jackson Thriller off the charts because of that. Yeah, Thriller was at #1. They came out, they got huge in 2 seconds, and Mental Health hit #1 on the Billboard charts. It's the first heavy metal rock band ever to break #1 on the Billboard charts ever. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so that's kind of how it all went down. And then now, you know, what we do now that we got Carlos, you know, so what we do is we a quarter of the show, of a 2-hour show, we close with all the Quiet Riot hits that he wrote.
Now, are you guys going to be touring anytime coming in 2026?
Not that we know of, because you know what, Carlos got so busy with RATT right now, and he's been touring with RATT. So, you know, and he's been in RATT for 11 years now, you know. And the big thing with RATT is, you know, another drama situation that
Right.
happens. And, you know, these 80s bands, I'm telling you, man, I know there's drama and everything in life, but I gotta tell you, because I play so many styles of music. The 80s people, man, they are the worst drama out of any group clique of music. I mean, I had to come to wits ends on that, because I'm like going, you know, okay, I'm playing rockabilly, I'm playing country, you know, I go out, because, you know, I tour with Albert Lee too sometimes. I go out with Albert, And so I play with him, and I'm in the country world. I'm like, well, everybody's cool in this camp.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I play with Davy Knowles, which is a singer songwriter that I'm currently touring with a lot in the last 3 years. And there's no drama in that band. As a matter of fact, that's probably this band I'm in, Davy Knowles Band, is probably, there's no drama in this band. We get along so good, and everything's so cool, and we just have such a good time. And if you like the band Free, Paul Rogers,
Yeah.
you'll dig this band, because we're a power trio, and we're a lot like Free, man. People compare us to Free. So it's we get a little bit of that, some Cream, and a little bit of Bad Company in there. And sometimes people like to throw in the Robin Trower thing at Davy, but no, we're got that, like, that 70s, Clapton sound, and that Free sound of back in the 70s. And it's not like we tried to be that way. Which just that's just how we play. We're not tributing, we're not doing anything. We're a real band. We just have our bands that we like a lot. All of us do, and we all have similar taste in this band. It's chemistry. But you can check that record out, if you haven't already. But that one's called The Invisible Man. Davy Knowles, Davy Knowles, like Beyonce Knowles. Davy's from Isle of Man, which is a country that's no bigger than an island between Ireland and England. It's only, like, I want to say, what is it, 15 by 30, the island, 15 miles by 30 miles.
Oh, geez.
Yeah. And Davy, we just did a run. We just did a West Coast run, and Davy had to leave the next day after our last show and fly to Isle of Man, because he got awarded from his country a Global Ambassador Award.
Oh, wow.
Pretty
Nice.
amazing, man. And he's 38 years old. He's really good, dude. He's got a great, probably the best modern blues player out there right now. This last year, on this record, we hit number 4 on the charts. We ended on number 4 in the blues rock charts.
Now, are you recording with him or just strictly touring with him?
No, I recorded that album, The Invisible Man, the one that's out right now. We're supporting. I recorded that record with him. We did the whole record in analog. You're gonna dig it. You're gonna dig it. It's the real deal. I mean, we play like everything on stage is all vintage gear. I mean, my gear is not so much vintage, but theirs all is. I mean, Davey plays a 1963 Vox AC30 with he's got a 66 Telly, he's got a 66 Strat, he's got a 64 SG, and then Todd's got a 65 Precision, a 63 SG bass. He's got, I mean, they got tons of vintage gear, man. That's what they play. They're very authentic players, man. It's one of my favorite bands, that I work with is currently. I mean, and the people, and I get along with everybody that I play with in every band, but I'm just saying, like, this band is just really just amazingly, like, sometimes hard to believe that everything's going that good. You know what I mean? It's like, we never, this band never argues, and we never have, everybody, we talk things out if there's something that we need, to figure out. There's no crazy person in the band. There's no drifter. None of us drink in the band, so we're all sober. All 3 of us are. We just love what we do, and when we get on stage, it just we light up, man. And people are like always saying they haven't seen a band like this in a long time. So we're breaking ice, and we got this new record that we're starting right now that we're working on. This one's already a year old, this record, and now we're already going to get another record out pumping already. But we got guys like Sammy Hagar and that support us, and we've got Peter Frampton supports us big time too. And Peter actually produced the album before this one that I did. He produced the last record. Yeah, this band is one of those kind of bands. Even the legendary people dig us. That's the thing. Warren Haynes from Government Mule loves this band. There's definitely, like, Joe Bonamassa even put our songs on his playlist.
Oh my!
We come through there. Pittsburgh. We play through there. Well, we're actually pretty well known on the East Coast. To the inner. Pittsburgh is kind of like East Coast, little Midwest. You know what I mean? It's not totally 100% East Coast to me.
Right.
You're not really on the Atlantic side. You know what I mean? But not totally, like Jersey and all those places, right? So you're a little more inland. So, the thing is, but our draw is very large on the East Coast, man. We draw big. I mean, we sell out a lot of shows. Our show is about between 250 to 400 people. That's our room size about what we do.
That's a good
So we do a
crowd.
lot of yeah. So we do a lot of listening rooms and stuff like that. And sometimes we do like some of these shows are agricultural centers, or cultural arts centers. I'm sorry, not agricultural. It's cultural arts centers. A lot of not a lot, but sometimes they're non-profit places.
Mhm.
But then we do our rock venues too. Like normal venues as well, like in Pittsburgh that we play. Because we'll play like Pittsburgh and we play Philly and yeah, Davy's played a lot of places and stuff. But yeah, so man, he was on Jimmy Kimmel and they toured with Government Mule. They opened for Jeff Beck. I mean, they play with a bunch of people, man. Out with Chickenfoot. That's how he got to know Sammy Hagar so well because he supported his band supported Chickenfoot. We were playing in Laguna Beach, California, and that's where his house is, and he lives there. And so, he's like, yeah, he goes, I should call, Sammy and see if he come to the show tonight, tomorrow or whatever. And I go, yeah, you should call him. I said, but I think he's in Hawaii right now. I seen some of his postings. I said, unless they're just, how some people post things after the fact.
Mhm.
So I said, I don't know if that's true or not. So yeah, man, in about 10 minutes, he texted him in 10 minutes. Sammy wrote us back and said, yeah, man, I'm 4 months in Maui right now. I won't be back. But sorry, I'm going to miss your show. And then, they were kind of chatting back and forth. And then all of a sudden, then Sammy hits us back about 10 minutes later and he goes, hey, I got a thought. He goes, I got this new club that I've opened up a while back and not too long ago. And it's in Fontana and it's my club. It's a big venue, a concert venue. And he goes, I want you guys to play that venue. He said, so you need to contact your management needs to talk to, our manager that runs the venue and book out some dates. And when you get the dates, call me and I want to know what dates you have because I want to make sure that it works out that I'm in town and not on tour because I want to play with you guys.
Oh
So
wow,
Sammy's
nice.
gonna come play with us.
That's awesome, man. I'll tell you, I've seen Sammy and Michael Anthony, maybe 8, 9 years ago, and man, he was in maybe late 60s, early 70s then, and he still brings it.
He really does, man. He's one of the most amazing talents out there. As a human being too. I mean, just a happy guy, and I mean, look, man, he worked for it. Things weren't handed on a spoon for him. And but he realizes that he's very grounded that way, and he's humble, and he likes to help people, and he's just a good person. And if anybody didn't like him, I mean, that something's wrong with that person because it's a jealousy thing at that point then because the guy's living his life to the fullest, and he's happy, and he's not a selfish human being. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I wish a lot of artists were like that. You kind of mentioned there was a lot of internal fighting in bands and such from the 80s, and even when I was in my teen years, and I'm just gonna use Guns N' Roses as an example, like, when Steven Adler was kicked out of the band or Izzy left, and, I was, like, heartbroken. I'm like it felt like I was losing a part of my family because, I was attached to those albums, to those artists. And then as I got older, I started realizing, hey, these guys may have just been, thrown together as a band and they succeeded, and then I always looked at my what I call my hometown band of Poison. They went to high school together, they were best buddies. And, they're never going to break up. But now here we are 30, 40
Yeah.
years later, and they're having internal matters as well. So, yeah,
Yeah, and all bands have their bullshit. I mean, I know I kind of like picked on the '80s thing a little bit, but I can because you know why? Because I play with those bands, so I know,
right.
and that's the only reason why. Otherwise, I don't think I have a right to speak. But hearing a tabloid is one thing, but living it's another thing, right? So
Right.
and I have a lot of friends that play in different bands, that in the '80s, and they're all my friends, like like the Bullet Boys or
Mhm.
You've got, those kind of bands, and you got, Quiet Riot had a lot of fucking problems too, man.
Yeah.
I used to hear things mainly. I mean, most of the stories. I mean, some of them are from Tony Cavazo, but I heard it from the horse's mouth. Carlos. When you're around these people and you're having dinner and you're hanging out and you're rehearsing and you're just hanging out to hang out. It's very interesting to hear these stories and their takes, and like, you're hearing the real thing. I mean, obviously it's their opinion or it's their story versus somebody else's story in the band. Because obviously there's many sides to things, right? But you can kind of do the math a little bit, knowing people's personalities. When somebody's telling you rightfully what really happened, and versus somebody's story that's the reason why there's drama is because that one person is the problem, not the solution. And it's interesting to hear on how Quiet Riot functioned too. I mean, you had, and listen, some of these things I'm telling you are already published, so it's not like I'm telling the secrets here,
Right.
but I'm like living it right next to these people because I'm in the same room. But infrastructurally, Kevin DeBro pretty much destroyed the band from the outside, the outer structure of the band, by when he was doing so much, cocaine and
Right.
drugs and stuff, and he would do these interviews and start bashing his own band members in interviews and things like that. And he was just, his interviews were sucking, man. They weren't helping the band. He wasn't being business about it, and he was just rationalizing crazy things. And then what's his name? I'm just drawing a blank. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right now. But then
Frankie
you got
Banali.
Frankie Banali. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And you got Frankie, who was ruining the band from the infrastructure of the band. He was ruining it from the inside of the band. And when those guys were not together, they were fine. That's what, Carlos was always saying, like, when you can get Frankie by himself or you can get Kevin DeBro by himself, they were fine to be around. But when you put those two together, they were destructive. And that's basically what ruined the band. I mean, even before the death happened,
Right.
that was destroying the band. And then, of course, Kevin ODs, and then that's the end of that. I mean, Quiet Riot's pretty much, I mean, with a voice like that and a front man like that, you ain't gonna find anything like that. That's one of a kind right there.
Oh,
And then
absolutely.
they never recovered after that.
No, and then I know they brought Rudy back. With the
Yeah. I mean, that's all they have. And it's just interesting how But what's interesting about that, and this is my take on it, and obviously there's probably the truth, and then there's the story, right?
right.
So, but I don't really know the reason, but it's interesting the fact though that when Frankie Banelli was alive, first of all, I knew that Carlos would never want to come back in that band because of their internal issues that they had. And I don't have the right to say what happened, but it was really shitty what Frankie did to Carlos, from what the story I heard. And then, Rudy's pretty quiet and he watches, he's careful, I'm sure, and then, you'd think, why wouldn't Rudy be back in the band at any given time?
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't. And then it took Frankie to die, to pass on, before Rudy even came back. Well, why didn't Rudy come back before?
Right. And
You see what I'm saying?
I know exactly what you're getting at, and you shed a little bit of light on it that I never thought about. I thought it might have been more of a business decision, which it still probably was to some degree, bringing Rudy
It
back, and then I
Well,
thought
it
of
was. It was the only decision, because there's no way that they were going to carry the Quiet Riot name without having some original something in it that's original.
and then I thought it was kind of shitty what happened to Chuck Wright, but
Oh man, I feel bad for Chucky's one of my good buddies, man. And
yeah,
I've played in other bands with Chuck. I mean, Chuck and I have been always really great to each other, and he's such a nice guy, and he got the shaft a lot of times, man. It's crazy that band abused him, and it's just,
really. Oh man, I hate hearing that.
yeah. But the guy's on all the damn records though, and and he's the real deal. I mean, Rudy's not on none of those records. That's all Chuck Wright, dude.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
Rudy's got an interesting, history of how he became famous. It's like he's always been at the right time in the right place on all these bands. I mean, as probably one of the most famous live performance musicians in the world, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I would give him that credibility. I'm not, Rudy's on records, of course, but as far as like Ozzy and all that stuff coming into these bands when he came in, I don't know anybody in the world that has been able to be blessed like Rudy has, getting into these bands at that right time in the right place, and then setting the record like that. It's just, I don't know anybody who's been lucky like that. Nobody like Rudy.
He's been in so many iconic bands.
Yeah, very much so. And yeah, I said lucky, but I don't. Lucky is not the right word really, because I mean he deserved every gig he's gotten.
Mm-hmm.
But what I'm saying is that lucky of the fact that he was at the right place at the right time. Not lucky of the fact that he's not a good musician and he got the gig. He's a great musician, a great showman, and a great human being, and he deserved every bit of those gigs. But I'm just saying, it's just weird that so many, Whitesnake and all of them. It's like, oh my God, you came in at the peak of everything. It's crazy, right? But now here he is, closing his book, and he's closing, with the Quiet Riot thing, and I think he's playing his cards certainly to a certain level that I feel personally, in my opinion, that's rightful, because he's like kind of doing a full circle in his life,
I was just
and
going to say that. Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
that's something to be grateful. That's something to be grateful for, and he's
Absolutely.
carrying the torch and trying to close the book of Quiet Riot, the best way he can, and and he's the guy. I mean, because listen, man, I wouldn't doubt it if Carlos would come back and play right now, but that's kind of hard to do, when you got a guitar player that actually books that band, and he's been in the band a long time, probably longer than Carlos was in the band, but he's not the highlight fixture of the band, of like how Rudy and Carlos were, which would sell a lot more tickets if he was, but that means that the guitar player that's now, would have to bow down and lose a gig, but he books the band.
Yeah, and
So it's like,
I don't see Alex doing that. So
no, he ain't gonna budge.
no.
But I'll tell you what, I mean, but if Carlos came back, he would draw way more attention than Alex does,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But honestly, how long would that really last? You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
okay, now you got the guitar player and bass player, okay, that's cool for 5 minutes, but then now what?
Right. Yeah. And
Frankie's not there. If Frankie was around, then it'd be better, because now you got the power trio,
yeah.
and all you need is the right singer, which, they do have the right singer now.
Yeah. Jizzy. Yeah,
Jizzy's
definitely.
great, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was, I've known that Love Hate for many years. I mean, all those guys, I actually was asked to play in Love Hate at one
Oh,
time.
wow.
And yeah, just when Johnny Love was coming back into the band, Johnny Love was one of my good friends, and he was the original guitar player of Love Hate, but they had so much Love Hate, it didn't work out, right? So yeah, so that's what happened there. But I remember when Johnny called me, he says, "Hey man, would you be interested in playing Love Hate, on this new reunion tour?" I'm like, yeah. And then fucking they just couldn't get along fast enough and long enough to make it happen. And it never happened. But Love Hate was a cool band,
Oh, Blackout in a White Room. Love that song.
Yeah, that band was really good, dude. I totally underrated band, but Jezzy's a great showman. I mean, he's the closest thing you're gonna get to, like, I think, for that band, Kevin DuBrow. I mean, Kevin DuBrow is no different than a Freddie Mercury, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? He was so unique in his own way, like Freddie Mercury. They're irreplaceable people, you
And
know.
I mean it. I love Jizzy Pearl. I love almost everything he's done, but I never could accept him in RATT. Never could.
No, he's not. No. That ain't gonna work. You
No.
know. No. But that's what I think. But I've seen the Piercy project. Piercy came through here with the RATT group with Warren DeMartini, with Carlos. Carlos called me when they came to Chicagoland area here, and he goes, "Hey, why don't you come on down to the show?" So I came down and got to see him and his wife, and it was just great to see them, and stuff like that. But I got to meet Warren, and It's the first time I ever met Warren DeMartini, so that was kind of neat.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never really got to see Warren play on stage, to be honest with you. He was already out of the band at that time when I was able to actually, to see that band. There was so much turmoil going on at that time with that band. And Bobby Blotzer, I knew Bobby for many years, man. I knew Bobby when he was cleaning carpets, man. He was a carpet cleaner. Yeah, he used to come, down in Hollywood and stuff, and him and I used to hang out with Janie Lane, and I used to go drink beers and get totally just wasted with those guys. And yeah, me and Janie Lane and Bobby Blotzer would just fucking tie it on, man. And I used to hang with all them, guys. But yeah, as far as seeing like the cool lineup of RATT, I never got to see that explosive lineup in its prime. I never did. I never got to witness that. I had the records. I just didn't get to see them in a concert level, So it was nice that when I heard that Warren was coming back, willing to give it a shot with, Steven, and kind of, close the book on some things that, and it's funny because when we were rehearsing for the Hurricane stuff, he Carlos was rehearsing with RATT too at the same time, and I said, "Hey man, how's it going with RATT?" And he said, "They're already fighting on the first day, man." I'm like, "Oh my god!"
Oh.
I go, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "Yeah." Warren turns around and says, "Well, let's see how long this is going to last, And you know what? And it's been lasting. They've been doing all right. So but they definitely had their moments, but I guess they're holding it together right now, and I'm happy for them that they're able to get on stage together like that. And I know Carlos really likes to play in that band too, and he wouldn't, he told me, he goes, "I wouldn't play in the band if Warren didn't play. Otherwise, I wouldn't play. The only way I'm coming back to RATT is if Warren's playing in the band. If Warren leaves, I leave. I'll never play in that band without him.
No, that's respect right there. Yeah.
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 So that's kind of.
I mean, there's still 4 originals left. I would love to see one last hurrah with all 4 original members, but that's probably not going to happen.
No, I don't think it's gonna. I mean, this I think, is the highlight right now.
Yeah. And
I mean, you got to think of their age too, dude.
Oh, yeah.
They're getting up there.
I hate to think of their age because then that makes me feel old.
Well, we're getting there, dude.
We are.
Hey, we got more than 1 foot in the fucking grave right now, man. You know
Oh, I know. It's like I always say, I'm the next generation to be considered. What do you call it when someone holds down the fort in the family? But
that. Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, oh shit. Yeah, the one that keeps everybody together.
yeah,
that person.
pretty. I'm looking forward to it, but not looking forward to it. So, I still keep in my mind that, hey, I'm Gen X, and, I still got that 15-year-old mind with a 51-year-old body. So,
Yeah, no, listen, man, I'm 58, and I don't know, man. I feel like, middle late 30s in my mind more.
oh yeah,
I feel like I can push a 40 in my mind right now. Not a late 50. I mean, that's just the way my brain is. I mean, my body's not functioning that way, but my brain is.
well, I mean, that's like me. I can't wrap my head around some of the thinking and actions nowadays, and we could go on and on about it, but I just
Sure.
shake my head like, if this situation happened when I was in school, it would have been laughed off. And now it's like charges are being filed and everything for the simplest things. And I'm like, I was literally told by a school official, I got called about a month ago about my 10-year-old, and they go, "Mr. Augustine, I'm calling you to let you know your son is in my office, that he physically offended someone." I swear they make things up. I swear. And I'm like, "What does that mean?" And, the explanation was, yeah, he pointed his finger at someone harshly, and they got upset, and they went to the teacher, and we had to call them down to the office. And I wanted to let you know that nothing's really going to be done, but we have to call. It's protocol. And I kind of just laughed it off, and they got a little upset at me.
No, it's bad. I mean, listen, man, I remember being in high school and in a band, there was a few band directors I didn't get along with through my years of school. And mind you, and I don't mean this in an egotistical way, but I was always kind of ahead of everybody in school as a player. you know, so like when you joined band at 5th grade, I was in band at 4th grade. You know, I
Gotcha.
joined a year
Yeah.
earlier. Yeah. And then when, you know, when I got into middle school, you know, then, you know, you had your first chair, your second chair, all that crap started coming into your life. And
Hmm.
people were like ranked in your fucking symphony band and all these things. Right. And, you know, and at that time I kicked everybody's ass playing drums, you know, and I don't mean that in an egotistical way. I'm telling you a fact,
Right.
you know, and I was ahead of everybody because my dad played music with me. My dad was a guitar player, and you know, my dad played with Barbara Mandrell for 25 years, and
Oh,
you know,
wow.
and
Nice.
yeah, my dad was a you know, 50s rock and roll player and a country player, right?
Hmm.
So he always had bands all the time as well when he was in town, and then by the time I was 11 years old, I started playing pro with my dad, and he'd be, you know, be off the road, and he'd have his bands in Chicago here, and you know, I remember how I got the gig one night. You know, my dad was supposed to go do a gig, and the drummer was drunk, like drunk as a skunk, man, so bad he couldn't even. There was no way he could play. And my dad called my mom and said, "Look, you know, what do you think? You know, should we get Mike to play drums tonight? You know, because this guy ain't gonna make it. I can't call another drummer." And that was my first time. That was the first day when I started playing pro. You know, and that was when my dad came home and got me, and you know, we grabbed my drums, and my dad goes, "Okay, this is going to be it. You're going to play tonight. This is going to be your first big gig." And I was like, "Yeah, scared shitless, man." And I'm like, "Wow," but I was also excited at the same time, you know, because I was scared, but I wasn't scared. You know what I mean? It was like I was nervous, maybe more than scared, you know, because I was excited to go. I get to play, you know. I was excited, and you know, now I'm going to do this, and I'm like, oh my god, there's an audience now. I'm not kidding you. I played with my head down the whole show because I was afraid to look at the audience. I was so nervous to look at anybody, but I managed. I played all the songs, and the band turned around and was like, well, first of all, I come through the door and I'm 11. I'm carrying drums, and the guys in the band are like, "Who's this?" And that's my son Mike. He's going to play drums tonight. They see this little fucking kid coming in with a drum set, you know, thinking, "What the hell are we in for?" And you know what, man? They lit up. They were so happy. They couldn't believe I could play the way I played. And my dad groomed me so well and trained me so good. And you know, and a lot of the songs that he played were the songs that he used to practice with me with. So
Hmm.
I knew a lot of his material already. So that
Wow.
got me going, you know, and that was how I when I hit my first stage professionally with my dad, and from that time on, I played, whether it was with him or I played with other bands, and I, you know, not at 11, but
Hmm.
when by the time I got to be 15 and 14, I started getting asked, you know, propositioned to play other bands, and you know, and we'd go to these jam sessions and shit with my dad, these country bands, you know,
Hmm.
VFW halls and moose clubs and all these different places. And there would be like a jam session, and it'd be like, you know, 10 or 15 bands that show up, and yeah, Johnny couldn't come play drums. You know, can we use Mike to sit in with us? All right, Mike, you go up there and play. All right. I go up there and play. And then before you know it, some of these bands were calling my mom and dad and saying, "Hey, can we use Mike for our gig tonight?" And then my parents would drive me to him, or then it got to the point where I was about 16, and you know, mom and dad made rules with some of these people and said, you know, you come up and you pick my son up, and you're responsible for him and making sure he gets back okay. And these people were just like, oh my god, we will totally, you know, take care of Mike and protect him and make sure nothing happens to him. And yeah, I just started playing, man, you know, and then by the time I was 15, you know, into 16, I was playing 6 nights a week.
Oh my gosh. Wow. And
I,
now you've
so
never
when
looked back.
no, and I was going to school, you know, at the same time. So I was coming home at, you know, 1 o'clock and 30 in the morning, 2 in the morning, and waking up and going to school all day and going back to fucking doing a gig at night, you know. And I was bringing home $600-700 a week, man.
That was good money back then,
Hell yeah, I was making more money than most people made in their careers. And
right?
listen, sometimes I think I was making more money then than I do now. So it's like, it's kind of funny, but you know, hypothetically speaking, but you know, it was great, you know. And then I ended up playing, like when I was 16, I ended up playing out here in Chicago, um, 6 nights a week at this place out north here, close to where I live now. It was called the Farm Inn, and it was in a town called Wasco, next to St. Charles, Illinois. And I was playing 6 nights a week there, and it was like this killer, like converted farmhouse that turned into it was like a nightclub. But from the outside, it was beautiful. It was just this really nice with all French windows in it. And it was, a really cool. And inside, it was all like tuck and rolled red seats with, fishnet candles on the tables and velvet curtains, and that whole vibe. And the bouncer was like 7 feet tall, about 300 pounds, and he carried a 9mm. Actually at that time a 44, because they didn't have 9mm back then, but it was a big gun, right? So he had
Right.
it shoved between his belt and his pants and his hip, right?
Uh,
And I knew this guy from another club in Chicago, and I'm thinking, why are you out here in the middle of nowhere? It's kind of weird, right? Well,
uh,
I'm going to speed up the story a little bit. So I was the house drummer, and this place would bring in like Crystal Gale and Conway Twitty and Dolly Parton and Loretta Lynn and all these great country artists, and they would come and this place would pack, as a nightclub show lounge. And I was in one of the best bands in Chicagoland area. These guys were the players from like Waylon Jennings band I was playing in and shit like that. And so I'm playing in this band, about a year, and then all of a sudden, man, I go to work one day and there's a Fed lock on the freaking doors, man. My drums are in there. And I know nobody's in the parking lot. There's nobody around. I'm thinking, how is it that nobody told me anything? Like, why is there nobody here? And there's a Fed sticker on the damn thing. So I called my mom and dad on a payphone. That's, they had one, usually clubs always had payphones
yeah.
outside, right?
Yeah.
So I pick up the phone and I call collect and I tell my parents what happened. Well, finding out that the owner of the place, who by the way was the nicest person to all my family, always nice. I mean, always killer to me. I mean, just a gentleman, always to me, treated me with 100 miles of respect. My family would come, always making sure that they had a great seat to come see me play. This guy was a mobster. His name was
Oh
Little
no.
Ray Thompson. Look him up, Little Ray Thompson. And he was a mobster. Anyways, he killed like over 50 people, man.
Oh my
This
God.
this dude was smuggling marijuana because he's a Miami guy. So there's a book out, a paper book that's out right now. Matter of fact, I'm going to actually get in touch with the guy who wrote the book, and because I read the book and I bought the book, and that's a whole other story how I got this book. But he was basically compared to like Miami's version of Scarface. So they compared him, even on the front of the book, it says compared to Scarface. And he what he did was he had these fishing boats, these big boats,
Uh,
and cruise boats, and he would smuggle marijuana across the Caribbean. And mind you, marijuana was illegal back then, so this is how they did shit. It's funny, man. You think about today, right? And you think
right.
about then, and like people went to jail for life, and and the feds were busting all these people for marijuana, and now it's all legal shit, which these people wouldn't be in trouble like that today as much as they were back then. But what he did is he paid people like you and me and bought them clothes, gave them allowance to go buy these certain kind of dress clothes
Uh-huh.
and dress them up on the boat. So it'd be like, 15 or 20 people on the boat, all dressed up like they're going on this cruise thing. And all it was a cover up, because what was below was umpteen pounds of marijuana that they
Oh
were
man.
smuggling to the Caribbean, to Miami. Yeah,
Wow.
he was yeah, and he got caught, and he ended up dying in the Florida State Penitentiary, is where Little Ray Thompson died.
Wow.
And I
That's a
worked for him.
these are just stories you never even think exist.
Dude, I got shitloads of stories. I mean, we're just getting going, but I know we don't have that much time, because I mean, you don't want to bore your audience with all this stuff, But
I don't think you're going to
with
bore them. I don't think.
okay, well that's good. That's good. But anyhow, yeah, I mean, so I worked for the mob for a while, But I didn't know that person was capable, or even that person, because he was never that person to me.
Right.
That's the
Yeah.
trippiest part. But
Yeah.
there's a paper-bound book, Joe. There's a paper-bound book that's out, and it's this guy, I guess, just was like, I don't know, how people are just fascinated with certain things in life, and I guess he liked fascinated by mob killers and shit. And so he reached out to Little Ray Thompson a bunch of times, and Ray was like, I don't want nothing to do with your shit. I'm not gonna, don't interview me, and I don't really, most of these people keep their cards close to their chest, these mobsters, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he was in for life, for prison.
Mm.
So I don't know, whatever this guy did, he talked him into doing it. So this guy would go down there and he would interview Little Ray, and got him to open up in time, and basically created this book. And all this stuff, this story is basically our Little Ray Thompson stories that he basically told him, look, I want to publish you a book and tell people your life story of what you did. And so I guess Little Ray Thompson just decided, all right, I'll do it, and finally did it. And this is that book. I'm not in the book,
Right.
I mean, because this guy doesn't even know who the hell I am, but he's going to know who I am because I'm going to call him. He's got a Facebook page. I already looked it up. I just haven't got around to putting him on my radar yet to where I want to call him yet, but I'm gonna probably blow his freaking mind.
Yeah.
Because most of these people that were involved in that time are dead now. Matter of fact, the band that I played in, most of the members are dead in the band that I played in. They're not even around anymore. One of the last members that I know, he died a couple years ago, alcohol, and he died. He was actually the musical director. He's gone, because when I moved back to Chicago, I asked, I goes, hey, I ran into this dude that knew him, and I'm like, oh my God, I remember your name. I go, hey, whatever happened? Do you remember this guy, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, oh man, he died a couple years ago. I go, no shit. I always wondered what happened to that guy. And so, so I kind of closed the book on some of this stuff myself. But yeah, to call this guy who, this writer, this author, I think he's going to be really probably intrigued to talk to me.
There might be another book in the making.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I got enough information for him to write a book though, but I think he'll be happy to hear, because during the whole book, they talk about the venue, the club, and they talk about what he did as a gangster. And they talked about it being, a dinner house club where they had show band, but they never talked about the band. They got into it about the players. They never talked about anything. So that's the interesting part that I think he'll be probably tripping on, because I'll be able to talk to him about all these kind of things and the kind of entertainment that was there. And, just talk about, Ray was always inviting us for 2 weeks in the summer to go on this Caribbean cruise. And my parents would never let me go. And I was always wondering why, well, how come they're not going to let me go on this cruise? And it's a vacation. Well, it was hookers and blow, dude. That's what it was.
Yeah. And there's a band out there by that name now too.
Oh, I know, right? Totally. But yeah, and those people have no idea what I'm talking about, the real hookers and blow.
Right. No, I know. Yeah.
But that's funny you say that, because it's true. It's Alex's band, right? So
yeah.
But anyways, yeah. But I was, so I always wondered why, and shit, man. Later on, boom, when I found all this out and this happened and the feds came, I was like, what the hell? I mean, it made major headlines, man. This wasn't like a small time gangster.
Honestly, I'm going to check this out within the next couple of days.
Yeah, man, you're going to get into it. Yeah. So Little Ray Thompson.
It was a wonder they don't have a movie or anything out about him.
They should, I think they should do a movie. And that's one thing, I should probably mention to this author. You should really try to do a movie with this,
Yeah, get a screenplay going or something.
Yeah, and then as far as like the stuff I made with the band, I'll do the band part, for the movie and stuff.
Yeah,
and make it. I'll try to relive it how it was when I was there. I was 16.
Well, your parents were smart for keeping you off the boat.
They were, weren't they?
They were.
That's some funny stuff. Yeah, and then by the time I was 19, then that's when I left Chicago. And I had a one-way ticket to Vegas, and then that's when my real break came with me with the Pointer Sisters, and I started playing drums for the Pointer Sisters. And it was later on in life when I met, I started playing rock and, getting involved in playing with Hurricane. I was an R&B pop drummer for many years, man.
What style do you like better?
With me, it's interesting you say that. I play so many styles of music that's what keeps me going. That I don't really have a favorite, because I wouldn't play all the styles if they weren't all my favorite.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense.
So yeah, otherwise I'd be stuck in one genre, and
Yeah.
and now in my life currently, so I'm playing with Davy Knowles currently now, and then time to time I go out with Albert Lee. Yeah, well, Albert Lee is probably one of the most legendary guitar players in the world.
Mm-hmm.
He played 5 years with Eric Clapton. He was with the Everly Brothers for 25 years as the musical director for the Everly Brothers. He played many years with Emmylou Harris.
Okay.
I mean, these are like real proper players, man, like the real deal,
Mm-hmm.
And but he also, he's a Brit, so he came from England, and he actually, like how Eddie Van Halen brought us, his style of playing
Mm-hmm.
and doing all those hammer-ons on the guitar, how he does it with his finger tappings and all that shit.
Right.
That wasn't introduced to us until Eddie Van Halen made it relevant for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the same level as Albert is, but in a different style of music. And he brought what they call the hybrid picking, which is, using the little fingers in the back to do all that chicken picking kind of, single note picking stuff, that real fast picking. He brought that from England to America, and then everybody capitalized on it. And now, the whole world does it in many different fashions as well. But he's the one that brought that style. He was an innovator, like Eddie Van Halen was an innovator, not just a player.
And you're lucky enough to be in the band. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, I mean, the play. When you say you play with Albert Lee, people, they just stop. Like for instance, when I ran into Chip from Enough's Enough,
Okay.
and he was down here in Chicago, and I knew he was playing, so I went to go see him. We're friends. We did some, like the Meriwether Pavilion in Baltimore. We did that, the M3 Festival. We did that together and things like that. And but we're just buddies. We're Chicago guys, anyways. And so I went to see him. This was last winter, and I went to see him, and he's like, "Hey, I go, hey, Chip, what's going on?" And he was standing by the merch table, running all his own shit.
Mhm.
And he goes, "Mike, what's up, man?" I'm like, "Hey, dude, what's going on? I just haven't seen you in a long time. I thought I'd come down and support you guys and see the band." He goes, "Yeah, man." And he goes, "So what you been doing, man?" I says, "I've been on the road." He goes, "Yeah, with who?" And I go, "Albert Lee." And he goes, and he stops. He goes, "Oh." He goes, "Oh, you're playing with the real players." Okay. That's what he says to me. He goes, "I'm playing with the real players." I go, What are you?" He goes,
Right.
"Yeah, but not like that." He goes, that's like freaking, that's royalty level though. And I said, "Whatever." But I said, I thought that I got a kick out of that he said, "Oh, you're playing with the real players." I'm like, I was just laughing. But because some of the band members all play with, like, Bruce Hornsby in the band, and
Uh,
so if you want to start calculating all that kind of stuff, it does make sense, because those are really, like, if you're playing with like Bruce Hornsby and Eric Clapton and shit. I mean,
mhm.
it doesn't get much bigger than that shit.
No. Yeah, those
Those are
guys.
like the cream of the crop, proper players. You know what I mean?
You just took the words right out of my mouth with that. Yeah.
So yeah, so it was interesting because when we played LA just recently with Davey, our last show was in Los Angeles, and I invited a lot of my friends down, and some of the Albert Lee guys came down, and the Bruce Hornsby guys, and I told the guys in the band, I said, "Yeah, I got guys from Hornsby and Albert's band coming down," and they're like, "Okay, that's pretty big." And
Mhm.
Government Mule, some of those guys came down, and I invited a bunch of other players too that play with, like, Leon Russell and shit like that, and
Mhm.
anyway, some of the Albert Lee and Hornsby guys came, and they couldn't stay for the whole set, but they came to support me and stuff, and they were like, "Mike, this is one hell of a fucking band you play in. You didn't tell me it was this good." And these are top players, man, and they were blown away of the Davy Knowles Band. They were blown the fuck away, man. And I was really excited to hear that they felt that good about it, because I've been working so hard with this band, and to really, it's just a really special band to see. To hit those landmarks like that in music. We all wish to be in a band like that, and I've been with a lot of bands, and by far none, the Davy Knowles Band that I'm in now is probably one of the most chemistry bands that I've ever been in my whole life. That is like why bands like Bad Company exist, and why the bands like Free and Van Halen, the chemistry. You can't buy that shit, man.
Right.
That stuff, that has to come. The universe has to make that happen. And you know what? And it's like trying to win the lotto. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's the percentage rate is about that right. That's why there's only so many quote great bands out there.
Mm-hmm.
But the ones that we all know are great for a reason, and it's based on mostly chemistry.
And
And these bands don't know that they were going to become what they became. None of them did. They're just four guys in a room, three guys or five guys, whatever they are, going, let's make some music, and boom, here you go. You can't sit there and project that. You know,
No, not at all. And you're able to sense that in the recordings and live on stage.
absolutely. And the audience is like that too. I mean, the audience says to us all the time, and this is interesting, but they come up at the meet and greets because we afterwards we'll go do a meet and greet and sign stuff and sell. We go to the merch booth and hang out. We're not like one of those bands that pay $150 to meet us, and da da da. I mean, we don't do that shit, man. We're not trying to capitalize on everything. And I'm not saying that that's a bad way of marketing and business. It's business, okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't put it down, but it's not for everybody. You know what I
Right.
mean? And some bands I think that works for, but I don't think that works for every band.
Right.
And I don't think it works for this band because we're too personalized in this band of like
Mm-hmm.
we really get up close and tight with our band, with our fans. And at first it started out like, a lot of people just, pretty much focusing on Davy, which was totally understandable. But this band has grown in the last 3 years to a level of the old fans and the new fans of realizing that this is more of a band. It's not just the artist. And me and Todd in the band, Todd Bowers is the bass player. And we get a lot of attention in the band as well because we become a unit now. It's like Cream or something, like with Eric Clapton and Jack Bruce and and Ginger Baker. Well, they're all famous in that band. Everybody in that band is known. You know what I mean? But
Right.
not every band that you go see, everybody knows every player. The crowd, the fans are really into that now. They're like, the write-ups, and you can see like some of the comments that are made, like, man, you got to really check this trio out. It's probably the best blues band in the that's out today. And there's people writing shit like that. And like, oh, Mikey and Todd, even though that, Davy's such a guitar god and is a singer, and he draws so much attention that you can't help yourself to watch Todd and Mike play because there's such a strong rhythm section for Davy to let Davy do what he needs to do. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And it's true. It's fallen into that. And Davy's so supportive of it too. He loves, he doesn't try to be like the guy that stands in the middle up front and we're in the back. I mean, he knows that this is a great band, and everybody in this band knows what we have. We know we have a good thing, and we don't take it lightly. And we all aware of how blessed we are to be able to be in this position. The only thing that we're working on now is we got to get that, those great songs, greater, so that we grow better. And I think what really needs to happen in this band right now is we need to get on the road with a really good support, like a Blackberry Smoke band or something like that. We need to get a larger audience, or like open for Bryan Adams, or something of that level, or like Sammy, or something like that. And and we need to have their audiences so that more people see us on a larger level much faster. And I think we're on our way. We're getting very close. More people come up to us and go, "You guys are gonna hit it, man. You guys, this band's gonna go. We can see it." And you gotta just sometime when we come through your town, which we do,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta, hopefully your schedule allows, and I'd love you to come see it. You'd be in for a treat for sure. I don't know how far your podcast reached or what your audience is like. I know you said you're building it right now, so
Mm-hmm.
which is great. Like you said, you got to start somewhere, man. And
Yes,
and and I'm a supporter of that.
I appreciate that.
Of course, I do the big podcasts too, the ones that have millions of people. But hey, man, everybody matters. Like you do. Like this is to me like sitting like we're hanging out. You know what I mean? So this is what I dig about it, because it's like we're just talking and let it flow the way it wants to. Oh yeah, we could talk about all kinds of crazy stuff, man. I mean, I could talk about road stories too, man. Like being on the road and like all these crazy things that happened to me. Like one time I was I'll tell you a quick one. This will be just to give you an idea what kind of stories I can tell you.
Sure.
So one time I was playing up in Reno. This is when my Vegas days, and I was in between shows with, with some of the other bands, and so then I picked up this other gig, and they were going, okay, we're going to go to Reno and play at Bally's, So I'm like, all right. So it was 5 weeks. I booked out to play with this Latin band. So I was playing Latin, and it was all like Spanish love music, right? It was really
Uh-huh.
cool. I had to read charts and everything too, and stuff like that. And so I went out with this band, and we go up to Bally's in Reno, and wouldn't you know it, it was a big fight. A boxing match was going to happen, the middle welterweights, and it was Boom Boom Mancini meets Hector Camacho. Yeah, and it was the 1988 or 89. I have it downstairs in my studio. I have a shadow box built, and what I have is an autographed drum head from Hector Camacho.
Oh,
And
wow,
but
that's
I'm going to tell you a
awesome.
funny. I'm going to tell you a funny story though. So we're playing the 5 weeks there. So like about week 2 kicks in, and I'm not kidding you. This was like remember the Apollo Creed and Rocky movie
Yeah,
where Apollo Creed was this big glam flamboyant, knew how to do the media stuff and really hype his boxing matches up and yada yada yada, And then here's Sylvester Stallone sitting there beating a bunch of meat in the freezer, right?
right.
Well, that's kind of what this fight was like because Hector Camacho was the equivalent of the champion, like Apollo Creed was,
Mhm,
in boxing, and he was that really hype glitter guy, glitter boy, and everything was hype and hype and hype and pictures and hot girls hanging out and
mhm,
party and whatever. And still was he was obviously still a champion, but egotistically was very Hollywood.
mhm,
And then here's Boom Boom Mancini, which was the equivalent of Rocky Balboa, Sylvester
mhm,
Stallone's part. Well, when I played there, so we're watching this go on, and I'm watching him train. There was a full boxing ring that was set up in the main area of the atrium area of the casino, and you could watch him spar against all these um, Olympic fighters that he was sparring against. That was Hector Camacho, that is. And then I'm like, oh God, where's Boom Boom like training? Well, he was training down into the banquet room areas and had his shit set up in a banquet room, and the doors were shut, and just was doing his own thing, and nobody was allowed in. You know what I mean? It was just like
right,
he was kind of like more, I would say, reclusive, you
right.
know, and wasn't, just taking it seriously and really conditioning himself to really want to kick the shit out of Hector Camacho and win him. And mind you, this fight is interesting because Boom Boom Mancini a few years before that retired because he killed that Korean guy. Yeah. So anyway, so Boom Boom, I never got to meet. I'm
Mhm,
friends with him on Facebook now,
mhm,
but um, but I never got to meet him. And I told him the story about this, and he was like talking to me about it, like a lot, because Hector Camacho has passed on. He actually got murdered coming out of a club, and he got shot. So these guys, at the end of their day, would come in and have a dinner in the showroom that I was playing in, and we ended up befriending them and getting
mhm,
to know all of the boxers and the trainers and everything. And Camacho was there, always he was being loud and always like has to be the focus point of the night, and hear me, look at me. He's just one of those kind of guys.
right.
So anyways, he got the balls to ask me to sit in and play my drums. And he goes, hey man, you think I could sit in and play a song? And I go, sure, go for it. The band was like, are you cool with this? And I'm like, yeah, let him up. We got a kick out of it. So he got up and he started playing, and it sounded like a fucking fifth grader, man. It was the worst thing I ever heard. And I was just going, what the hell? I go, but hey, man, he's a champion fighter. If he's having a good time, let him have a good time.
Right.
And the whole crowd was just, busting up laughing, and just like it drew a lot of attention. That's all I can say.
Mhm,
And it was pretty funny for that reason, right?
mhm,
So when he got done, and he stood up and realized, I suck at this. I shouldn't be up here. What am I doing? And I'm standing there laughing on the side of the kit, and he hands me the sticks bag. He goes, hey man, here you go. And he goes, how did I do? I go, Hector, I go, stick to boxing. And I said it just like that and jokingly. And he turns around and he looks at me and he goes, you know what? He goes, I'll tell you what. He goes, you were nice enough to let me play your drums. He said, tomorrow, Mike, he goes, I want you to come down and I'll give you 1 minute with me in the round in the ring.
Oh, no.
I said, are you serious? And now, mind you, I was only 21 years old. So I was a little bit more feisty and a little bit like, fuck you, I'll fucking do it.
Okay, cool.
You know?
Yeah.
So I did it. And when he said that, I said, I'll do it. He goes, matter of fact, the whole band wants you all come down and all you guys can get a minute with me. Let's have some fun tomorrow. So the guys were like, I go, you guys all want to do this? And you know, and my musical director, he was named Rick Latempio. He was the musical director for Andy Gibb. He also played with Andy Gibb's band. And they're like, Mike, what did you just do? I'm like, hey, man, this is going to be great. So we all go down there the next day. Dude, it was so much fun. So I get in the ring with Macho, Camacho, and they put the headgear on and the kidney belt. And they put a lot of protection on me, you know, because obviously I'm not a champion fighter, you know?
Right.
I mean, the guy could have cleaned my clock in 2 seconds, you know?
Mhm.
So we get in there. Oh my God, the place was nuts, man. Snapping pictures. Everybody was laughing. And I get in there and Hector was laughing too. He was smiling while he was in there with me. And he's just like, he's fucking with me. And he's just, you know, he's tagging me here and there. And I'm telling you what, dude, them motherfuckers are fast. I was standing face to face and in seconds he was behind me before I could even turn around. I'm like, cause he dances good, you know? Dude, I gained a full respect for that because I'm like, wow, I didn't realize what level these dudes are really on, you know? And I gained so much respect, meaning like, you don't want to mess with these dudes, man. You know, this is like, you'd be a fool to even think about it. And so we did the round, and then the other guys got up and did their rounds too. And oh my God, it was so much fun. And then, like I said, so that was my experience with Hector Camacho. And to conclude it, Boom Boom Mancini actually lost that fight. Hector won his title still. You know, when you're in a ring with somebody and you kill somebody,
Yeah.
I think sometimes those kind of things like take the wind out of you in a way of your compassion and who you really are. I think it ruins people when something on that level happens to somebody, you know, and, you know, time is time, you know, and I think, you know, and it wasn't his fault. It's the ref's fault for not breaking it up in time, you
Yeah.
know? And he just took this dude out and killed this guy. You know, it's like, that's pretty sad, you know? He's got to live with that the rest of his life. But I see Boom Boom posting stuff all the time, and I don't know how deep, you know, post-traumatic stress he has from that, or, you know, nobody, we don't talk about those things. And, you know, I don't ever see him talk about him or bring him up. No, I don't see anybody. They got a lot of respect for him. I mean, he was a champion fighter, man, you know?
Right.
And I ended up befriending a bunch of the fighters, and one of them lived in Tony the Tiger Baltazar. He ended up living in he lives in Arizona now, but he lived in Vegas. And you know, I was, you know, working out at the gym and everything, and he goes, hey, why don't you come down to this gym and come hang with us, you know? And so I started training with all the boxers, and but I didn't fight. What I did is I trained physically what they do to become a fighter. And that's what I did to keep in shape, is I did what they did. But I didn't get in the ring and box them. I just did all the things that around becoming a boxer, what you do to train to become a boxer. And those guys took me under their wing. And I would do exactly what those champions did in training. And when I went down there, I would train with them. And I would do as much as I could besides the boxing stuff and, you know, like getting in the ring stuff. But I did, you know, I did the bags and all that stuff, and the jump ropes and the way they did their sit-ups and the way they ran, you know, all that stuff. I just didn't want to, you know, I couldn't wreck my hands because of being a drummer.
Right.
So
Well,
the last thing I needed to do was bust my wrist boxing one of these dudes, and then all of a sudden I don't have a gig, you know.
right,
So
or a career.
I couldn't, yeah, I couldn't do that, man. But yeah, man, that was that time. And then, you know, and then the other big fighter that I never trained with or anything like that, but I befriended, was Oscar De La Hoya. Yeah, and I met him up in Big Bear, which is up in San Bernardino County, California. And I used to play a resort up in the mountains called Big Bear. And I used to go up there, and he used to train up there. It's some of these boxers like to do high altitude training. And
Yeah.
so he went up there, and he used to come and see me play all the time. And we became really good friends. And my buddy lived up there who plays bass for Alice in Chains, Mike Inez.
Okay.
And Mike used to come watch me play all the time. And, you know, sometimes Jerry Cantrell would come out because, you know, the band would be up there doing whatever they do. Randy Castillo came a couple times, when he was playing with Ozzy, and and Randy became friends with me. I was friends with Randy probably 2 years before his death.
Mm-hmm.
And he came and we met, we became buddies and everything, and that's how I met them guys. But then Oscar used to come to the bar too, so we'd all, after a gig, come to the band house where I used to stay afterwards, and I invite all those guys, Randy and Jerry Cantrell and Inez and Oscar De La Hoya and his people. We go up there and drink beers and party and have a good time, and I'd be hanging with all these cats, man. We all just be hanging after hours till like 4 or 5 in the morning.
That's amazing, man. You have lived such a lifestyle. We haven't even really scratched the surface yet.
Oh no, we got a lot of other bands to talk about. But we'll do that for volume 2. So, hey, but yeah, I got some other ones we can get into. I mean, I got my Willie Nelson stories, my Neil Young stories,
Oh,
my Beck and Jack White stories, and I mean, I got lots of them, man. And I have a
so
cool band that I have in Chicago here that I put together when I'm off the road, and it's my power acoustic band. We'll get into all that later. That's called Creative Minds with a K. Band, it's a cover band,
Mhm.
but we put our own twist on everything because we're an acoustic band, and I have this really killer drum setup that I put together, this hybrid kit,
Mhm.
and and so that we can save that for another time. But yeah, check it out. That's a cool band, and we've been getting a lot of hype on this band here in town now that I put it together. It's been a year. It's a year old now. The band, I try to fit it in between now, but you also have to grow with these venues, and most of these people out here don't even know who the fuck I am. Like fans do because
Mhm.
they know me. A lot of people in my area know me from Hurricane.
Right.
So because where I live is a huge '80s bubble. So, everybody knows me from Hurricane. I mean, I could walk to the, go see, I went and seen Richie Kotzen. Richie was in town, cause I used to
Mhm.
play with Richie
Okay.
and John Five were there. And, I brought one of my bass player with me from here, and we didn't even get through the door, and the guy's checking you with the metal detector wand.
Uh-huh.
He recognized me. He goes, "Hey, you're Mike from Hurricane. I know who you are." And it's like, we just walk right in. But that's the thing. This town is like a very '80s town, man. It's not like I'm not in the city, you know what I mean?
Right.
So I'm in the suburbs, and mullets still exist.
Yeah. Well, I know.
Okay, you got it.
I
So yeah,
do.
we've got that. Yeah, so we've got that, the '80s thing. Just like a lot of Pittsburgh's got a lot of '80s stuff
Oh,
still.
yeah. Absolutely.
Yep. All right, buddy. Take
All right.
care of
Hey,
yourself.
So, where do I even begin with wrapping up this podcast? All I can say is that's Mike Hansen, everybody. From discovering that he worked for the mob as a teenager, to laying down the beats for the Pointer Sisters, then hard rock great Hurricane, to the soulful blues of Davy Knowles, Mike Hansen is just talented beyond words. And let's not forget, he went one round with Jose Cuervo. Sorry, I don't know. It just came over me. Tracy Bird's country song, but he went one round with Hector Macho Camacho. Who does that, really? These are the type of stories no one can make up. Mike, all I can say is thank you so much for sharing your incredible journey with me and the listeners today. And you know what they say in the mob world? Once you're family, you're always family. But hey, we're talking about the Gen X Marks the Spot family, not the other kind. If you want to catch Mike doing his thing, he's out there touring with Davy Knowles and others. So make sure you check out the tour dates on Mike's social media at Cymbal Crasher. And don't forget to follow us here at Gen X Marks the Spot Podcast on all social media platforms for upcoming guest announcements and much more. And just a reminder, we're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, YouTube, and TuneIn. Subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure you leave us a review, tell your friends about it, and if you didn't like it, don't tell anyone. And remember, when it comes to great podcasts, right here at Gen X Marks the Spot Podcast, we go 12 rounds to bring you the best stories. Until next time, turn the music up, keep it loud, peace out, props everyone for listening. I'm Joe Augustine.
It's the Gen X Marks